Hello and welcome to Sensitive Changemakers, the podcast where we celebrate the power of sensitivity and introversion in leadership, entrepreneurship and beyond. I'm Kate Carter, your host, a certified professional coach, HSP and introvert who's passionate about helping you embrace your unique gifts and lead with authenticity. Let's dive in. Hello, I hope this episode finds you well. Today is all about me leaning into one of my edges, and if you are a recovering people pleaser like me, or you've ever been taught that it's not okay to toot your own horn or to brag about your wins, then this is the episode for you. I feel that I've been on quite a journey over the last kind of 6+ years, and I feel quite proud of myself that I've been open to looking at what is working, what I need to tweak, and being prepared to neutrally look at my data and make adjustments as necessary. Now, I do love looking at data just as much as I love the kind of more mindset and energy side of the business. But what I have found is that I've gone from having quite low conversion rates to having above the norm conversion rates, and this is something that I really wanted to break down for you. So this episode is actually a recording of what we covered in our masterclass in the Facebook group, and if you would like to come and join us, I do weekly masterclasses over there, and I really wanted to share this one with you so that you can get a much more clearer and really transparent idea of what was going on behind the scenes as I made this increase from very low conversion rates to above the norm. And I would love for you to let me know what lands with you and what you're going to do as a result. How are you all? I hope you're all well. I know it's a bank holiday here, but I did talk to my family. I was like, are we doing anything? Can I have a work day? So I've got a partial work day. There's a little bit of behind the scenes work I'm doing, and then I am going to spend the time with my family. So I am excited to dig into this with you. If you are live, say hi. If you're on the replay and you've got any questions as we're going through this, please do ask. I am an open book as much as I possibly can be, so please do ask any questions. And we're going to get stuck straight in. So for those people who haven't seen these kind of live masterclasses before, I do them every week. And then once every month, I will do a bigger one that I will market for in other places. Whereas these ones, I may mention them in other social media. So I mentioned this one in Instagram. But generally it is just a kind of week to week going over different things that hopefully are going to support you. We do have a big one coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's going to be a case study one, which I'm really excited about. This is with a client who we work together, and she messaged me today to say that she's had, I think, a 4,300 week, and I'm going to break that down, what we did together, how that was possible for her. I've asked to make it anonymous, but she was like, no, you can say my name. So we're going to kind of break that down for you so that you can see what went on behind the scenes. So I'll let you know when that one is up and running. I haven't done the landing page for that one, so I'll let you know when it's ready. So, okay, this one is all about what I did to get above the kind of standard in our industry, those standard conversion rates. And I'm going to preface this by kind of just saying that the mindset for me, the Kate that I had to kind of just get really curious about, was I've always enjoyed looking at data. Data is part of the reason that I love doing what I do. I love the kind of more the kind of mindset stuff, the energy stuff. Absolutely adore that. But I do love the kind of strategy, looking at data, looking at the numbers, seeing what we need to do, seeing what we need to tweak. And so that's always been a part of my business. And when I was first doing this kind of work, I really just was quite hard on myself. So I'm prefacing this by saying that this might be the case for you as well. I know we've got some really hard workers in here, some really high achievers in here who really hold themselves to a very, very high standard, and I get it. But I just want to preface this whole conversation by saying my inner dialogue, without any kind of real kind of awareness, was very much, oh, but that's not 100%. Oh, but that's still not this. oh, but that's still not where I want to be. And actually, when I looked at it, obviously things have improved over the last 5.5 years. But when I look at my data now, I'm like, wow, it is actually above standard norms. And I want to encourage you, because I think a lot of you would actually, if you took the time, if you don't already, have a look at your data, have a look at your conversion rates, have a look at the behind the scenes stuff. And I bet you, most of you, your conversion rates are probably better than you realize. So I want to preface that by saying that to start off with, because I think a lot of us hold ourselves to these incredibly high standards. And actually, when we look at it and we look at what the norms are, we go, oh, actually, either I'm not far off, or I'm doing much better than I thought I did. So I'm just going to preface that by saying, so let's get stuck into what I really see to be true. Okay, so this is my picture. So I've had a look at my most recent data just last week, because I wanted some actual kind of hard data to give you before we went into this live. So industry standards on landing pages is 6 to 10%. So that means people that are reading your landing page and then clicking to join, whether that's to download a PDF, join a masterclass, whatever that next step is. 6 to 10% is actually the industry standards, around about that. Mine is about 21%. So when I looked at that, I was like, wow, okay, that is above standards. Now, like I said before, that high achieving side of me is like, yeah, but it's not 50%. It's not 60%. So I just want to get you, and I'm smiling as I'm saying this because I know there are going to be people in here who really kind of resonate with this. I want you to look at that with the perspective of, but the industry norms, let's look at those, 6 to 10%. Okay, 21% is a lot higher than that. Email opens. Now, interestingly enough, I had somebody email me about my emails saying that hers had gone to the kind of promotion folder in her emails and what she could do to help me. And I had to smile to myself because mine is around 60% open anyway. So I think that's a really good kind of open rate. The standard again is around about 42%. So again, maybe have a look at your data and see what it tells you. The click-through rate. So this is when you're reading an email and there's a link at the bottom to click through to something, whether it's next step or whether it's something to nurture your audience further. Again, the standard is around about 6 to 17%, and mine is generally minimum of 30. So again, just giving you those actual kind of hard data so that you can see hopefully where you are, but also that those high achievers that I know I've got in the group, me included here, where you think, yeah, but it's not 100%. Actually, when you take it into perspective of what is the norm, the standard norm for most of us, I bet you most of you are not far off or actually better than you were thinking. So let's start. Okay, hopefully that makes sense so far. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down into 3 parts, because as with everything, and I know that there are so many voices in the online space that want you to believe that there is just one magic thing that you can do, and it's, in my experience, just not true. There's so much nuance, there's so many details that go into this, and it's what you bring as an individual to your business and what you're already working with that then directs the way that you're going to move through your mindset, your energy, your clarity, all of that, and your strategy. So it's not just about what you're doing and the way that you're acting and the actions you're taking, it's about what you're bringing to that as well. So this is very nuanced. So I'm going to break it down into the inner journey. So this is very much those mindset pieces. I'm going to break it down into clarity, so getting really clear. And I'm going to break it down into the strategy side of things, the action that I was taking. Now, I'd like to, again, just before we start, and I know I'm taking a long time to start, but just want to get everything sorted, all my ducks in a row, so that you really can take from this what is really going to be supportive for you. This is me and my business. This isn't necessarily the clients that I work with, and it may not be the case for you either. So as with everything I do, because I'm not coaching you one-to-one, take the things that matter to you, that resonate, that you think, oh, okay, that's the same as me. Maybe I could try that. Maybe I could lean into that, and just kind of leave the bits that don't make any sense for you and your business. Okay. You don't have to do everything, and you definitely don't have to copy the way that I'm doing it. This is just to show you what is possible and to break it down for you. So the reason that I want to really show that this is possible for you is because for so long I really truly believed that I was rubbish at selling and rubbish at marketing. Like, it just wasn't for me. Even though I'd done kind of marketing work at university and I'd done really well in my dissertation with that, it still didn't feel, there's a difference, isn't there, between knowing the stuff and doing the stuff. And I thought that when I first started my business, if I could ignore sales, and I know looking back, this doesn't make any sense, but bear with me. If I could ignore sales and just find another way to run a business, then everything would be okay. And I think as a highly sensitive and introverted entrepreneur, 5+ years down the line, this could be something that I could lean away from and go, oh, but I know my audience don't want to talk about selling. I know my audience don't want to talk about how to sell. But actually, I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't show you what was possible for you as an introvert and highly sensitive. So it's about me leaning into my edge here, sharing more about selling with you so that you can see what is possible for you as well. If you're feeling like that frustration of, oh, why isn't this easier? Why can't I just find my way? Okay, so let's get started. I'm just going to check if I've got any comments. So Linda has put, so important to get to know yourself and what's feeling aligned. Absolutely. So true. So true, Linda. Right. Okay. If you've got any other comments, just let me know. I'm going to get my notes up so that I don't miss anything, because you know what I'm like. I just want to make sure I cover as much as I possibly can. So the inner journey, there were 3 things in my inner journey that I'm going to call them, or mindset. They were, the first one was make mistakes and my perspective around making mistakes, patience and neutrality. Those were the 3. So I'm going to break those down a little bit more. So first of all, the making mistakes. Okay, now I know this might seem really kind of simple and basic, and logically we know when we're doing the work, when we're putting ourselves out there, that making mistakes is just going to happen when we are in business. And we are going to experiment. We're going to try things. Things aren't going to work out how we thought they were. We're going to need to refine. We're going to need to adapt. We're going to need to shift, all of these beautiful things. But if we have the mindset going into this, and again, high achievers here, hard workers, this applies to us. If we have the mindset of, but it's got to be right, then that can actually derail us a little bit. Because if we're going in with that mindset, and I've been there, so there's no shade here, there's no blame whatsoever, I get it, I absolutely do. And this is one of the things that I had to work on, was if I put something out there and it's not okay, or it doesn't work the way that I wanted it to, that's okay. That's part of this journey of being an entrepreneur. And it goes against, so if I put my education hat on, which is, you know, part of my life and has been for kind of 17 years, actually 19 years more or less, but if I put that hat on, it goes against what we're taught in schools, you know. And I have this argument so many times. This is why I get frustrated with education. But the education system is set up to tell us that these things are right and these things are wrong. And if you're getting things wrong, you're not going to get what you need in life. You're not going to get the grades, you're not going to get the job, etc. And entrepreneurship goes completely against those things. Because actually what the perspective and the energy that we need when we're an entrepreneur is, we're going to make mistakes. There are going to be things that actually don't work out. And that actually makes us a stronger entrepreneur if we stay in it and we're prepared to look at, okay, what didn't go well here? Where was the gap? Where was the point that I could lean into, or the bit that didn't feel aligned and actually I didn't need that anymore? Like, really having that perspective around the actions that you're taking in business. I think that's such an important piece. And personally for me, having a coach to support me through that, and I'm not saying everybody needs a coach, but having a coach to support me through that really helped, because otherwise you can't see the woods for the trees. You think going into it, and again, this is past me, I thought going into it that was the mindset I needed to have. Like, I need to be really hard on myself. I need to make sure I get it right first time. I need to make sure there's no mistakes. And if there is, well, that just shows that I can't do this. And that's the other flip side of this, isn't it? If those things do go wrong, then what do we make that mean? We can make it mean that we're not cut out for it, that there are other people that are better at it, so why do we bother? All of these different mindset gremlins can come up, and then that really affects our energy levels, and it affects the way that we take action and our behavior, because then suddenly we're like, oh, instead of feeling all kind of, oh yay, this is working, when everything goes well. When things don't go so well, we just go, you can feel it, can't you? You just go, oh, this just is not what I was expecting. This means X, Y, and Z. It means I'm not good enough. It means that I shouldn't be doing this. It means that maybe I should go back to full-time work, etc. All of these different things that can really derail us from the path that we're on. So I hope that makes sense to start off with. It's that real initial okay with making mistakes, and it's tough because it goes against what we've been taught in education, and most of us have had that journey through education where this is right, this is wrong, okay, and if you get it wrong, you're not doing the right thing, and you're not going to get the grades, you're not going to get the job, etc. So that was the first thing that I had to lean into. The second thing that kind of crosses over a little bit here is the patience. And knowing, again, this goes against what you hear in the online space, and that isn't to say that things can't happen quickly. They absolutely can. And the client that I'm going to be breaking our work down together for you in a couple of weeks has looked on paper that it happened really quickly, but when we break it down, you'll see that actually there's a lot of work that's been going into what her amazing week that she's just had. There's a lot of work that went into that. So patience is a big one. And again, it can feel really frustrating. Frustration was one of my biggest emotions when I was in the reeds, so to speak, when I was struggling to kind of find those clients. I've been quite lucky in the fact that I've always had clients, but sometimes it's only been 1 or 2 clients, and I'm fully booked at 6. And so having that kind of that frustration of, oh, I'm doing it, I'm doing the work, why isn't this working? And realizing that actually patience was one of those things that I need to cultivate. And the way that I started to look at this was I started to see it as a journey rather than a to-do list that I had to tick off. Again, hard worker, my hard work ethic coming into play here, which has always served me so well for my majority of my life. You know, if I just put in the work, things work out. Just put in the work, it'll be okay. And then suddenly being in entrepreneurship and I was putting in the work and it wasn't okay. Like, I'm putting in this work. Why aren't things converting? Why aren't things, happening like they should be? And patience was one of those, and knowing that this was a journey, that there are going to be highs and lows. And the other piece here is that self-belief. When I'm thinking about that patience and breaking it down a little bit further, it very much is that self-belief that I will figure it out. Because what I talk about so often, I've spoken about this with clients, is we are stepping into the unknown. We're doing something we've never done before, and our brain doesn't like that. Our brain will just go, you've never succeeded in this before, so I can't guarantee that you're safe. So if you just keep doing the things that you've always done, that's okay, because I know I can keep you safe in that. But if you start doing new things, I can't keep you safe. So your brain is playing this over and over and over. And that makes stepping into the unknown really difficult. And we can't use our logical brain to bring in evidence and say, this is going to work out. Because we've never done it before, we don't know. But what we can do is we can cultivate that self-belief out of, I will figure it out. Like, I can't guarantee that it's going to work out exactly how I see it and how I envision it, but I back myself that I'm going to work this out, that I'm going to figure it out. And that mantra, that kind of self-belief, that foundational kind of understanding really supported me in then being okay with it taking a little bit longer. And again, it doesn't have to for everybody, but for me generally, and for lots of different reasons that I won't get into, but it generally did for me. It took quite a while. And that idea of, I will figure it out, I've got my own back, I know that I can make this work, I've got myself type thing, that really supported me, and that lent into that patience. And then the last part of the mindset perspective here was around neutrality. And again, how do I word this? Coming at something, so data is wonderful, like looking at data, like I said, I love it. But if I come at that from an emotional response, so say for example, I've done a reel and it's not done as well, and then I start looking at the data and I'm already quite emotional, like there's a heightened emotion there, that's not the best time to be looking at data, because I'm emotionally kind of fraught. There's a lot of going on here. And so one of the things that I've really learned how to do, and this is why I did my trauma-informed qualification, because it so supported me with the emotional side of things, and then I can support my clients, is How do we sit with those emotions first of all? What are those emotions telling us? Because the emotions are the way that our body talks to us. So what are they saying? What do they want to express? And then how can we actually process those emotions? And sometimes, in our own way, and this doesn't need to be loud or anybody's face, but we may need to go and scream into a pillow or write really angry kind of words on a piece of paper and then rip it up. Some people burn them. But there might be something that we can actually do to help process that. I find tapping is one of those things. I'm not au fait with EFT. I've got a lot of friends who do EFT, but I just like the tapping one. I find to start off with, it didn't do a lot. But over time, that has been really useful just to kind of sit with an emotion that may be coming up for me and helping me to process it and see what comes up. So processing those emotions has been a big part of this so that I can get to the neutrality. And the neutrality is, okay, we can just have a look at this. And it doesn't mean anything. I'm not going to make this mean that I'm not good enough or that I'm not cut out for this. I'm just going to look at the data and go, oh, interesting. That one didn't do as well. That's okay. I wonder why. And that curiosity aspect, those three things in terms of mindset have really, really supported me sticking in it long enough for me to do the next parts, which is the clarity and the strategy. And then working at it and working at it until I can see those kind of figures. I'm like, wow, actually that is better than the standard norm. And I didn't, that's something that I'm going to really kind of praise myself for because I've done so much of the work to get here. So those parts first, those mindset parts. So things I think in business generally can be simple, but it doesn't mean that they're always easy. I think there's a lot of edges for us to lean into. I think there are different things that we have to kind of allow ourselves to feel and allow ourselves to work through so that we can come out the other side. I think there's a lot of getting really honest with ourselves and allowing ourselves to go, oh yeah, actually maybe that is an area that I need to lean into a little bit more. So simple yes, easy no. So the next part that I'm going to kind of dig into, so that was the kind of foundational work. The next part was the clarity piece. So this one, I'm going to dig in. I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can with this one. This is the one I think I've struggled with the most since 2017 when I had the idea of the business, then 2020 when I started making money, and then even really kind of recently, this has been a real edge for me to lean into because for lots of different reasons. I think one of the main ones being that I am super passionate about just supporting people. And like I was just talking about EFT there, this is going to lead into that because one of the things that I've had to really kind of pull myself back from in a positive way is, do I really need that in my business right now? Because I've done lots and lots of qualifications. I've done my coaching, I've done coaching and mentoring, I've done my NLP, I've done the trauma informed, I've done CBT, I've done positive psychology. Like there's so many pieces and I've loved every single one of them. But what it's meant is I felt very pulled in lots of different directions, and clarity around just what's the one thing I want to be known for, or what's the kind of way that I want to work with people. That's been the most difficult part because I have, and I think most sensitives and introverts do, we get easily influenced by people around us and by what we hear on social media and things like that, and we can get dragged very easily into different pathways. And so we think, oh, that sounds really interesting, let me explore that. Oh, that sounds really fun, let me look into that. And so that has meant that I have tried, I think, quite a lot of different things. I've tried memberships, all of these with, success. I'm not going to say amazing success, but with success. I've done memberships. I have done group programs. I've done one-to-one. What else have I done? Courses. And even though I've learned something, and I've done ads as well, and even though I've learned something from each of those different things, I always come back to one-to-one. And the reason that I do that is because I know that's where I work best. That's my kind of zone of genius area. And I know it's where my clients get the most out of me. So that one-to-one work has been so, so supportive. And one of the edges that one of the things I've had to normalize and be okay with is that it's okay to trial these things out. Now, if you're into human design, I know a little bit about human design. But it's not something I'm completely au fait with. But I do know that I'm a 1-3 generator, and that means that I do like trial and error. And so I know for me personally, again, this is very personal, it may not apply to you, I've had to try things out and go, this worked, this didn't, or this was for me, or this wasn't for me. I couldn't think that through just on its own. I had to actually put it into practice. And so the clarity piece around this, and this is one of the reasons things has taken longer for me, I truly believe, is because I needed to try things in order to find my place. And I feel that in the last couple of years, I found my place. Like, I know that one-to-one work is my bag. Like, that is the thing that I do really, really well at. That's where my clients get the most support and the most, the best results. So that's the first thing I had to get really clear around. And this matters, and everything that I'm talking about here really matters in your conversions, because you need to back yourself first before people then back you too. And that can be really, really tough. Like I said, simple in the ideas, but tough and not easy in the actual kind of taking the action around it and doing the work around it. And so that was the kind of process. The next part of it was, who do I work for or work with? And again, this was really quite tough for me, because I started out supporting with more of the mindset, more of the energy. It was all about supporting people with anxiety and overwhelm. Then it kind of came into more of the strategy, which, like I said, I love. And then that I found that I was quite overwhelmed in the online space as a highly sensitive and introvert. And I was like, again, I didn't have a coach at this time to help me through. And I wish I did in a way, but I didn't. And so I was like, I'll pull back. I'll pull back because this seems too scary. And actually, it's about leaning back in. So I talk about all these things with clients, and I think everything that I've ever worked with clients is something I've experienced or something similar that I've experienced myself. And this was one of them. This is why I always talk about, is that a real out of alignment issue, or is it a fear being disguised as an out of alignment? And this is exactly what this was. And if you were around, you may have even realized that I really did pull back from working with entrepreneurs, because I was just like, I just don't like the constant money talk and the selling and all of this thing. And actually, it wasn't necessarily, there was part of it in the marketing space that I was a bit like, I don't like the way that's being done. But for the most part, it was actually something I needed to lean into rather than lean away from. And so really getting clear on who I wanted to work with. And again, this may not work for you in your industry. I do work with a lot of clients who don't necessarily have a niche in terms of their ideal client, but they have a niche in terms of the solution that they provide, and we use that as our niche rather than the ideal client, and that works really well as well. So that this may not necessarily apply to you, but those are the things that I needed to get clear on, and I needed to get clear on those things so that I could then sell the things that I needed to sell. Okay, so I hope that makes sense so far. I'm just going to see if there is any. Yes, Linda, generator as well. Woo! Yes, the explorer and the 3 energy. That's absolutely it. It was just one of those things I think I needed to kind of just navigate and explore through. So that's the clarity piece. Let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to say about clarity. Yeah, I did. There is going to be a post coming out this week, because one of the things that I felt really ashamed about in the past, and something that I had to work through, is that I have done quite a lot of shifting and pivoting and finding my set base and exploring and things like that. And there was a part of me that was really ashamed of that. Like, again, high achiever, getting it right first time. Why didn't I get it right first time? Why didn't I just know? And actually normalizing that it's okay to explore these things. I really, truly believe it's okay. For some of us, they get it straight away, and that's kudos to them, amazing. But some of us do need to explore, do need to pivot, do need to lean into something just to know that actually that is for us or that's not for us, etc. So really that clarity piece is so, so important. Is there anything else I wanted to say? Yeah, I've put here as well that this is the part that crosses over with mindset, I think, because there is something really scary about putting your flag in the sand, so to speak, and say, this is what I do, and this is who I help, and this is the solutions that I provide. Because as sensitives and as introverts, especially sensitives, I think, we do love depth. And we love all the nuance and all the different perspectives that you can have on different kind of themes and things. And I know that this was something that I struggled with, because I was like, oh, but you've got, say, for example, marketing, but you've got it from this perspective and you've got it from this perspective, and over here it could be seen as this. And there's so many things that can really affect the way that we're processing, because we've got that deep processing kind of quality in us, that actually stops us from moving forward, because we've got so much detail, because we've got so many things and things that we want to bring together. So to actually say in the sand, this is what I do, this is how I help people, these are the solutions I solve, that can feel quite scary, because you feel like you're going against that part of you. The kind of the mindset piece that I would really offer here is, I'm a huge believer, after doing this work for so long, that the strategies actually support the flow and the creativity. And I know that sounds like completely backwards, because we think, well, if we've got the flow, then we've got creativity. And I know that there have been some studies where people have been, and I can't remember what they are, I'm going to have to try and find it so I can give the credit where's credit due. It's just come into my head. But where they were artists and given, so they had like a control group who were given, they could have anything, and then the other people that were just given certain items that they had to use. And the people that were just given specific things that they had to use actually produced so much more range than the people who were allowed to use whatever they wanted to. And this is the kind of mindset piece here, is a lot of us, especially as introverts and highly sensitives, we think we have to do it all. We have to bring everything that's in our brain out into the world, because we're that deep processor. But actually, if we put structures in place, that can lead to more creativity and more flow. I know it sounds backwards, but that's something I've really found to be true. So by putting my flag in the sand and saying, this is what I do, this is who I help, these are the problems that I solve for people, the creativity behind that, suddenly I've got all these ideas. Whereas before, when I was trying to do everything and help everyone, I was like my brain just gone completely like, I've got nothing, because I didn't know where to come at it from. Does that make sense? So the clarity piece was so important here, and I'm hoping that really kind of resonates with you. To have that structure allows that creativity and flow. So don't be scared. I think what I'm trying to say here is, don't be scared about saying, this is what I do, this is how I help people, these are the problems that I solve, and getting really clear on that, so that you have that space for creativity and flow. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's the clarity piece. Let me just see if I've got anything else I wanted to say there. Yeah, I would just offer again, fears are not necessarily something to pull back from. I'm just going to end this one before we go into strategy. Fears are not something to pull back from. Fears are normally there because there's an edge that we need to lean into. And I think if we allow fear to rule us, that's when it can actually stop our business from growing. But if we lean into them and go, oh, interesting, let's get curious about why this is here. What am I making this mean? That then allows us to go, oh, I don't need to let that affect me. They can still be there. Those thoughts, those fears can still be there, but I can still do something with that. I can still move forward. I can still make decisions. I can still take that action. Okay, so I just wanted to add that a bit about fear. So let's move on to strategy, which is the last bit of this. And I know one of my coaches, she used to say this, and I've got huge respect for her. I think she's amazing. Her name's Kim Argetsinger. I think she's a fantastic coach. And she always used to say that the strategy is the simple part, and it's everything else that can be quite complex and quite nuanced. And I completely agree. The strategy itself is often the most simplest part. We can overcomplicate it. We can look at it in so many different ways. We can, do all of those things to it. But actually, when we break it down, the strategy itself can be quite simple. So everything that we've kind of spoken through today, the mindset pieces, the perspectives, and then the clarity piece, all of that together, that was the nuance. That was the the things that were I brought to my business, you know, those were the things that were maybe a little bit more individual for me. But when I brought all of that package together, when I'd done that kind of inner work, when I've got the clarity, that meant that actually the strategy became so much more simpler. And it allowed me again to be more creative, to go a little bit deeper, because I knew that those bits that I'd just been speaking through were already in place. And again, they didn't all happen at the same time. It's been a very kind of up and down journey. But using all of that information, because having that information, knowing that clarity piece, knowing that I backed myself, knowing that I had the tools that I needed to actually make this work, meant that I got really, really clear on my messaging in my landing pages, in my emails, and in my conversations. And one of the things I think is really important here is, for those people who hate selling, you know, I didn't change myself. I think that's such an important part here, because I know there's a real tendency to listen to the noise in the online space and think, oh, that means I must be blah, blah, blah. But I didn't change myself. I'm still me. I still, in my emails, if you get my emails, like on Friday, I sent one out and I spoke about my daughter and, you know, what we're going through with her ADHD and things like that. And so there's very much still me in there. There's always edges to lean into, as we've already spoken about. I think it's going to be a constant thing for all of us. But because I had done the work, market research, I listened and I noted down what clients were bringing to sessions. So I started to get really curious, because I know I'm going to repeat myself here, but because I backed myself, because I'd done that work around my own mindset, what I was making things mean, and then I got clear on what was important for me in my business. It meant that when I was having sessions, I got really curious about the language that people were using, and I was like, oh, isn't it interesting? You know, that client brought that to a session and so did that client. Maybe that's something to talk about. Maybe that's something to bring to a masterclass. Maybe that's something to bring to maybe I can create a free download around something around this. So the market research and getting curious about what clients were bringing to sessions really then allowed me to get really clear and understand what was going on for my people, like my ideal clients, my right fit clients, whatever the language you want to use there, getting really clear on what was going on for them right now and what they wanted to do or feel. So what was the problem they were experiencing and what was the solution? You know, what did they want at the end of it? How did they want to feel? What were they aiming for? And again, it was then around balancing me as a person. So leaning into that version of me who is still me, absolutely still me, but who doesn't necessarily care what people think. And that can be really tough for a lot of us, can't it? Because that's real edge to lean into. That was one of my edges in terms of the strategy, was if I didn't care about upsetting people, and not in a hurtful way, but just in I'm not showing my inner workings, I'm not showing my true self here, if you want another way of looking at it, because I'm so scared of upsetting somebody, because I'm so scared of somebody going, well, this isn't right, or this is wrong. That fear was showing me, Kate, there's something to lean into here. It's not something you should be backing away from, it's something you should be leaning into. So if I listen to that little voice inside me, and this goes over what we were talking about last week, which is that embodiment piece. If I'm listening to that little voice inside of me, normally a little voice, that is truly, truly backing me and isn't overly worried about upsetting people, isn't overly worried about getting it wrong, what would she like to talk about? So it's still me, but it's a rawer version of me, if that makes sense. That's the edge that I had to lean into in terms of my messaging, in terms of my landing pages and things like that. So it was the market research, it was the rawer version of me, and it was bringing those two pieces together. Okay, then it was using, and this is the strategy that isn't very sexy, but really does matter. It was trialing those two things. So bringing that rawer self, that rawer version of me, together with that market research of knowing where my ideal clients were, combining the two, and then practicing, and then looking at the data and tweaking it. And a lot of people don't talk about this trial and error. I know we've kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, But this was the strategy. It was about, right, okay. It was about, what do I want to share about myself? And I won't go into this too much because we went over it a couple of weeks ago. But, you know, what are my values? What's important to me? What do I want people to know about how I work, how I show up, how my business works, all of those different things. And then how can I combine that with knowing where my clients are, what they're struggling with, or my prospective clients, what they're struggling with, where do they want to go, what do they want their business to look like, and combining those two, and then just playing with it. And I think play is a really important skill that maybe we don't talk enough about. Is it goes along with curiosity, doesn't it? Curiosity and play. And how many of us really truly allow ourselves to play within our business in terms of our landing pages, in terms of our emails. I know that I do now. I embrace that. It wasn't something I embraced at the start at all, but I do so now, and I come at it from okay, I think this is really important for people to know about me, and I know it resonates with people where they're at right now, so I'm going to write about this, and I'm going to put it out to the world, and then I'm going to look at the data and depending on, I'll go over this in a minute, depending on what the piece is that I'm putting out there depends on when I look at the data. So I'll look at the data and I go, ooh, and I'll have that neutrality, and I'll go, interesting, maybe. So let me give an example here. Say that I put a landing page out there for a masterclass, and this has happened, so I can break this one down a little bit easier. So I've put a landing page out, and I can see from the data, so I don't look at it every day. I may look at it, if it's for a masterclass, maybe once a week, twice a week, depending on how quick the masterclass is happening. And what I might find, and what I found in the past, is that people are looking at the landing page, but they're not clicking on it. So that then means, I'm like, oh, interesting. That means that people are interested in the masterclass because they're clicking on the link to read the landing page, but the landing page isn't converting because then they're not clicking to join. So there's something in the landing page. Let me look at the landing page in more detail. Right, interesting. Do I talk to what their problem is right now? Do I talk about what I can help them with and that transformation, that solution? Do I talk about why me? Why is it my masterclass or the way that I'm going to do this masterclass that makes a difference? And those are the three kind of lenses I see it through. I hope that makes sense. So problem solving, transformation, like the actual what you'll get, how you will feel, that relatability, that relevant part, and then why me? Because otherwise, I think if you don't put the why me in, and I think for a lot of us, this is the edge to lean into, if we don't put the why me in, we're advocating for just, in my case, just coaching and any masterclass on this particular topic and you're sorted. Whereas that's not going to convert, is it? Because somebody might see that and then they might see somebody else who's doing something similar and they do put the why me bit in and they're like, okay, I resonate with this person so much more. So the why me is definitely an edge to lean into for a lot of us, but I think it's such an important one because people do need to know what is it that you're going to bring as the business owner into this particular arena, in my case, into this masterclass. Why is it yours? And so I look at those three bits and just look at the landing page. Has it got those three bits? Is there anything that I could go deeper into? Is there something that I need to make it easier for them? Sometimes it's just as simple as bringing, the sign up sign, bringing that higher on the landing page so they can see it, so they don't have to scroll all the way around to the bottom. So you've got that kind of, am I making it easy for people to sign up? So these are the parts that I'm looking at when I'm refining and tweaking things, because things don't generally work on the first time. There are going to be, you'll have success, absolutely. But to get those higher conversion rates, it really is, sorry, I'm such a fidget bum. It really is about playing and getting curious and then using these lenses. I'm going to say them again because I think it's so important. That problem awareness, I know a lot of people say don't talk about it, but I do think we need to talk about it. I don't think we need to stay there. I think that's the distinction. I think, yes, absolutely talk about problem awareness, but then talk about the transformation, what is possible for them. Empower them to see that that they can absolutely do it themselves. And then the why me factor. And then the last part in terms of the kind of layout and in terms of maybe some of the wording is, am I making it easy for them to say yes to? So those are the kind of four things. And then I'll just play. And I'll go, right, okay, so generally for me, landing pages work better if the sign up is higher. landing pages work better for me, I've realized, if I don't have a huge picture at the top. So again, I've trialed this, a huge picture at the top of my landing page that isn't of me. And that's such a simple thing, isn't it? Whereas the landing pages that convert higher have a picture of me at the front, at the very, very top. And it's just interesting things like that. It's like, oh, isn't that interesting? And again, it's that why me, isn't it? People buy, even if it's a free event, I'm going to use the word here, buy. People buy from those people they like, know, and trust, that they go, oh, I'm going to be safe with this person. I resonate with them. I think they're going to give me some really good information. And they want you to have that personal part in there. Well, who was I talking to? We were talking about like big companies who are paying for people to make things more personal outreach. I use Glamour Dip, which is like and I'm going off topic a little bit here, but hopefully this makes sense. I use Glamour Dip, which is like a dip for nails, and I love it. I haven't got any on at the moment. It's one of those things I'm like, oh, I'm going to treat myself in the next week maybe. But I've been using that, and there's a Facebook group, and there are people in there who work for Glamour Dip, and I'm not sure who they are, but they are personable in the fact they put their name, they do outreach. I don't know who's at the top of Glamour Dip. I don't know the person who actually started it, but you feel very taken care of and looked after because you've got these individual people actually reaching out to you through the Facebook group, through emails, through Messenger, supporting you if you've got any problems with the product. Or with Glamour Dip, it's quite, because it's a dip nail thing, there are some little learning curves, should we say, and there's loads of supportive advice out there. But you've got that personal touch, and that's why this works. So you've got bigger companies who are doing this kind of work, and we are in the best, because most of us are small businesses, you know, we are in the best possible position to be able to do this personal part of running a business, which is making it personable, putting ourselves into the mix, reaching out, talking to people, all of those different things. But in terms of our landing page and in terms of our conversions, people are going to want to see you and what you offer and why you. So I hope that all makes sense. I'm just going to see if I've got any questions. I think we're good. Let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to see. So in terms of landing pages, I've spoken a little bit about landing pages and the way that I look at it. I also do the same sort of thing with emails. Emails slightly different in the fact that I like to be even more personable in emails because they're like my little group. You know, they're the people that have said, yes, I would love to, you know, be with you on this journey, want to learn more about you. So I do share things in my emails that in fact, I know I don't on social media because they're my people. And I want to make sure that I see them and I hear them and I share things about me. So I lean into that me part in emails a little bit more than I would do in landing pages. And the other part was conversions in terms of conversations. And I know that I've talked about this a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not going to kind of go over it too much. But in terms of conversations, the biggest shift that I made in terms of converting those at a higher rate was and it's going to sound like I'm going against everything that I've just spoken about, but taking myself out of the equation when it comes to a conversation, not in a, how to best word this. So I'm still obviously in there. I'm still talking about my processes and how I work with clients and all of these different things in my conversations. But I'm not bringing my fears, my doubts, my expectations, my assumptions into that conversation. That's where I'm taking those bits out. Does that make sense? Hopefully. So I'm still leaning into that why me part because we're going to be talking about the one-to-one work. We're going to be talking about the processes and what you can expect with working with me, but I'm not bringing my assumptions, my expectations, my fears and my doubts. Those are getting removed. And the way that I do this is I lean into the service rather than the selling. And this has been one of the biggest shifts that's helped me in terms of conversations. And that can be emails as well, like one-to-one emails. I find those incredibly useful for introverts and highly sensitives. I think it's a wonderful way to convert clients. But in terms of conversations, it's been, how do I lean into the service here? How do I make sure that these people that I'm talking to, or this person in front of me, feels listened to, feels heard, and feels that they know what to do next, even if that's not working with me, even if that's going to find somebody else, or if it's me signposting to somebody, that's okay, because my aim in these roles is to be in service. And ironically, having that perspective going in for the majority of the conversations helps me to then have more clients, because I've got, like I said, a 90% conversion rate. And I know I could absolutely make that higher if I wanted to, but I'm happy with the way that I'm doing things right now. There may well be edges for me to lean into in the future, but that is kind of how I approach those. So just to give you an idea in terms of strategy for each of those kind of different ones. So landing page, definitely those three things that we were talking about. So problem awareness, solutions transformation, and then why me? And then, am I making it easy for people to say yes to? Emails, leaning, again, this is just my perspective, but leaning a little bit more into, showing them behind the scenes a little bit more, showing them about what goes on in Kate's head a little bit more personable, a little bit more vulnerable, but still in a way that I'm happy to share those bits. And then conversation is leaning into that selling and removing the assumptions, removing the expectations, and really just allowing myself to be fully present and listen to the person in front of me and helping them to make the best decision for them. So I'm going to leave it there. The last thing I am going to say, let me just check I've said everything I wanted to say. Yeah, awesome. So the last thing I wanted to say is that like I said, fully booked for me is 6. I will be finishing up with one client soon, so I'm going to have a space open in June. I am going to be, this is one of my edges, I'm going to be increasing my prices. So this isn't a scare tactic at all, nothing of the sort, but just to let you know, if you do want to grab that one space at my current prices, please do reach out and let me know. Because as I said, in June, middle of June, end of June, I'm going to be increasing my prices for lots of different reasons that I don't want to bore you with right now, but it's a decision that I've made that feels very edgy for me, and I've made it because of different financial reasons in terms of what I have to pay out in the business, and what's going on with my family. My kids are getting older. My son will be looking at going to uni soon. I say that in a couple of years, but I just want to make sure in terms of the back end for me that I've got resources there to support both myself and my family. So there's lots of different reasons that's going into this, and it's not something I've just decided one day. But yes, so without further ado, I'm going to wrap this up. But if you are interested in having that one-to-one, so it'll be 6 months of working together. Like I said, I only do one-to-one work. If you're interested in that, please do reach out and ask, and you can nab that last spot before my prices go up. Okay, sending you so much love, guys. If you do have any questions whatsoever, please do reach out. I'm really hoping that this has made sense. As I said, if it hasn't, just let me know and I can clarify a little bit further. Fantastic. Oh, I've loved this conversation so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, whatever you are doing, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening. It means the world to me, and I really hope this has been supportive. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for choosing to listen to this week's podcast with me, Kate Carter. I appreciate you so much. If you enjoyed this show, then please leave a review. Every month I will pick a winner for a free 50-minute coaching session with me. Also, if you know someone who could benefit from listening to this podcast, then please share and help me reach more new entrepreneurs who could benefit from learning their own small steps to take.